The morning sun rose over New Harvest, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus Webb stood in his kitchen drinking coffee and watching the news on his old screen. The reporter's voice was urgent, almost frightened. The search continues for the missing Dracony hatchlings. High Matriarch Sisratha has extended the search radius to include all human settlements. Colonial authorities urge everyone to cooperate fully with Dracony search teams. Marcus frowned. 3 weeks had passed since the baby dragons disappeared from the royal breeding sanctuary. 3 weeks of fear and tension. 3 weeks of watching massive Dracony ships fly overhead, their sensors sweeping every inch of the planet. The Dracony were not a species to anger. They had arrived on New Harvest 200 years before humans, establishing their colonies and sanctuaries across the northern continent. When humanity came 50 years ago, desperate for a new home, the Dracony had allowed them to settle the southern regions. It was an uneasy peace built on mutual respect and careful boundaries. Now those boundaries felt fragile. Marcus turned off the screen and headed outside. His farm stretched across 200 acres of good land. Wheat fields swayed in the morning breeze. His barn stood solid and red against the horizon, built by his grandfather when the Webb family first arrived. Marcus loved this place. It was simple, honest work. Growing food, tending the land, living quietly. But quiet was becoming impossible. A shadow passed overhead. Marcus looked up to see a Dracony patrol ship, sleek and silver, moving slowly across the sky. He had seen dozens of them in recent weeks. The Dracony were thorough in their search. They checked every building, every cave, every possible hiding spot. Some colonists whispered that maybe the hatchlings had died. Others said they might have been stolen by smugglers who wanted to sell them on distant worlds. Marcus did not believe either story. The Dracony protected their young better than any species in the known galaxy. 15 babies could not simply vanish without a trace. His communicator buzzed. It was his neighbor Old Chen who ran the equipment repair shop in town. "You see the news, Marcus? They are saying the Dracony might revoke our settlement rights. Send us all packing if those babies are not found." "I saw it," Marcus replied. "Try not to worry. I am sure they will find them." But Marcus was not sure at all. He spent the morning checking his wheat. The crop looked good this year. If everything went well, he would have his best harvest yet. It seemed wrong to think about wheat when babies were missing, but life continued. Bills needed paying. Food needed growing. Around noon, Governor Chen's voice came over the colonial broadcast system. Everyone's communicators chimed at once. "Attention all residents. High Matriarch Sisratha will address the colony at sunset. Attendance is mandatory." "This is not a drill." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Mandatory meetings were rare. This was serious. He finished his work early and drove his old truck into town. New Harvest's main settlement was not large, maybe 3,000 people. Most were farmers like Marcus or workers who supported the farming operations. There was a small spaceport for supply ships, a medical center, a school, and a few shops. The town square was filling with people. Everyone looked worried. Families stood close together. Some people held their children tight. Marcus spotted Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the xenobiologist who sometimes bought vegetables from his farm. She looked grim. "Sarah," Marcus called out, "what do you think this is about?" Sarah shook her head. "Nothing good. I have been consulting with the Dracony medical teams. Those hatchlings have been missing for 21 days. If they have not been found by now..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. As the sun touched the horizon, a Dracony shuttle descended into the square. It was larger than the patrol ships, dark and impressive. When it landed, the crowd grew silent. The hatch opened. High Matriarch Sisratha emerged first. Marcus had seen Dracony before, but never this close. Sisratha stood nearly 8 feet tall, her scales a deep emerald green that caught the fading sunlight. Her wings, folded against her back, seemed huge even in their rested position. Her eyes were golden and ancient, filled with intelligence and something else. Grief, Marcus realized. She looked like someone who had lost everything. Behind her came 4 Dracony warriors, their scales darker, their bearing military and precise. Governor Chen stepped forward, a small human man facing a towering alien matriarch. To his credit, his voice did not shake. "High Matriarch, we welcome you. Our people stand ready to help in any way possible." Saratha's voice was deep and resonant. When she spoke, everyone heard her clearly, even those at the back of the crowd. "For 3 weeks, my children have been missing. 15 hatchlings, barely 2 months old, vanished from our most secure sanctuary. We have searched with every tool at our disposal. We have scanned every meter of this world. We have found nothing. She paused, and the silence was crushing. Some among my people believe humans are responsible. They say you covet our young, that you wish to steal our genetics, our secrets. I do not believe this, but I am only one voice among many. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Fear was visible on every face. I come tonight to make a final appeal. If anyone knows anything, if anyone has seen anything unusual, speak now. Time grows short. My people's patience grows thin. Without those hatchlings, our presence here and yours may soon end. The threat was clear. If the babies were not found, the Draconi would leave New Harvest. And humans, who held their settlement rights only through Draconi approval, would be forced to leave as well. 50 years of building, farming, and living would be erased. Governor Chen looked at the crowd. If anyone has information, please step forward. No one moved. Marcus felt helpless. He wanted to help, wanted to do something, but what could he do? He was just a farmer. He grew wheat and vegetables. He fixed broken equipment and worried about rain. He was not a detective or a soldier or a scientist. Ziratha's shoulders sagged slightly. It was a very human gesture, Marcus thought. Grief looked the same across species. Very well, she said quietly. The search continues. But know this, humans of New Harvest. My children are everything to me. Everything. Without them, nothing else matters. She turned and walked back to her shuttle. The warriors followed. The craft lifted off, silent and swift, disappearing into the darkening sky. The crowd began to disperse slowly, people talking in low, worried voices. Marcus stood still for a moment, watching the stars appear overhead. Somewhere out there, 15 baby dragons were alone and lost, or worse. He climbed into his truck and drove home through the gathering darkness. His farm looked peaceful in the moonlight, the barn standing solid like it always had. Home, safety, everything he had ever wanted. But tonight it all felt temporary, like sand that might wash away with the next tide. Marcus went inside, made a simple dinner he barely tasted, and went to bed. Tomorrow he would check the north field, maybe repair the fence by the creek. Normal work. Normal life. He did not know that tomorrow everything would change. He did not know that the answer everyone sought was sleeping quietly in his barn, hidden in the hayloft where his grandfather once stored winter feed. The baby dragons had found their sanctuary. They had been there all along, waiting in the darkness, following instincts older than any technology, seeking the one place on New Harvest where they felt safe. And tomorrow, Marcus would find them. Marcus woke before dawn like he always did. The farm demanded early hours. Animals needed feeding, equipment needed checking, and the day's work planned itself around sunlight and weather. He made coffee and stepped outside. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the smell of growing wheat and morning dew. Everything seemed normal, peaceful. Then he noticed something odd. His barn door was slightly open. Marcus always closed it firmly at night, always. His grandfather had taught him that lesson 50 years ago. Open doors meant lost equipment, visiting animals, or worse. Marcus frowned and walked toward the barn. Probably just the wind, he thought. The latch was old. Maybe it had finally given out. But as he got closer, he noticed something else. The air near the barn felt warmer. Not much, just a few degrees, but enough to notice in the cool morning. And there was a smell, faint and strange, like hot stone and cinnamon. Marcus pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The barn was dark, lit only by thin streams of sunlight through gaps in the walls. Dust floated in the air. Everything looked normal at first. The old tractor his grandfather had used still sat in the corner, covered with a tarp. Stacks of equipment lined the walls. The hayloft ladder stood where it always had. Then Marcus heard it. A sound like breathing, but deeper, rhythmic, multiple sources all synchronized. The hayloft. Marcus climbed the ladder slowly, his heart beating faster. The warmth increased with each step. So did the strange smell. When his head rose above the loft floor, he stopped and stared. 15 small dragons lay huddled together in a pile of old hay. They were beautiful. Each one was about the size of a large dog, with scales that shimmered in colors ranging from deep blue to bright copper. Their wings were folded tight against their bodies. Their eyes were closed. They breathed slowly, deeply, as if in a profound sleep. Baby dragons, the missing hatchlings. Marcus froze. His mind raced. They were here. In his barn. All along they had been here. He carefully climbed down the ladder and pulled out his communicator with shaking hands. He called the emergency line. "This is Marcus Webb at the South Valley Farm. I found them. The baby dragons. They are in my barn." The operator's voice went sharp. "Say that again?" "The missing Draconi hatchlings. All 15. They are here sleeping in my hayloft. Do not move. Do not approach them. Help is coming." The line went dead. Marcus stood in his barn, alone with 15 sleeping dragons, and waited. They arrived within 10 minutes. The first ship was military, fast and aggressive. It landed hard in Marcus's wheat field, crushing a section of nearly ripe crop. 6 Draconi warriors emerged, weapons ready, moving with deadly purpose toward the barn. Marcus stepped outside, hands raised. "They are in the loft. They are sleeping. I have not touched them." The lead warrior, her scales a dark gray, glared at him. "Step back, human." More ships arrived. A medical transport. A command vessel that Marcus recognized from the night before. High Matriarch Sisratha emerged from it, moving faster than Marcus thought possible for someone her size. She did not look at him. She ran straight into the barn. Governor Chen arrived in a colonial vehicle along with Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. They joined Marcus outside while Draconi personnel swarmed around and inside the barn. "Marcus, what happened?" Sarah asked. "How did they get here?" "I do not know. I just found them. This morning. They were just there." Governor Chen looked worried. "This does not look good, Marcus. They are in your barn. You can understand how this appears. I did not take them. I did not even know they were here." Inside the barn, voices rose in the Draconi language, sharp and urgent. Medical equipment hummed. Marcus could see lights flashing through the barn door. Then High Matriarch Saratha emerged. She walked straight to Marcus, and he thought for a moment she might strike him. Instead, she stopped a few feet away, studying him with those golden eyes. "The hatchlings will not wake," she said. Her voice was controlled, but Marcus heard the fear beneath it. "Our medics cannot rouse them. They are alive but unresponsive." "Maybe they are just sleeping deeply," Marcus suggested. "No." Sratha's tail lashed behind her. "This is torpor. A survival state, but why? And why here in your structure?" Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward. "High Matriarch, may I examine the scene?" "As a xenobiologist, I might—" "Do what you must," Sratha interrupted. But quickly, Sarah disappeared into the barn. Marcus, the governor, and the High Matriarch stood in awkward silence. More ships continued to arrive. News drones appeared in the sky. This would be all over the planet within the hour. After 20 minutes, Sarah emerged with a portable scanner and a confused expression. "High Matriarch, I need to ask some questions about the hatchlings. When were they actually hatched?" Saratha tilted her head. 2 months ago. Standard incubation period. And their development? Were there any complications? None. They were healthy and normal. Saratha paused. "Why do you ask this?" Sarah looked at her scanner, then at the barn, then back at Saratha. "Because these hatchlings are premature. According to my readings, they are approximately 6 weeks younger developmentally than they should be. They hatched early." Saratha went very still. "That is impossible. Our incubation systems are perfect. They have been refined over 10,000 years. May I access your sanctuary's environmental logs?" Sarah asked carefully. There was a long pause. Sharing such data was a significant request. But finally, Saratha nodded and spoke into her own communicator. Within minutes, data began flowing to Sarah's device. Her eyes widened as she read. "High Matriarch, your sanctuary's climate control system failed 7 weeks ago. The temperature dropped 5 degrees. Humidity shifted. It corrected itself within hours, but the eggs hatched early to survive." Saratha finished, her voice hollow. "And premature hatchlings enter protective torpor if conditions are not optimal." "Exactly," Sarah said. "They need very specific environmental conditions to safely emerge from torpor. Temperature, humidity, air composition, it is all very delicate. Our medical bay has optimal conditions," Saratha said firmly. "We will move them immediately." "Wait." Sarah held up a hand. "May I check something first?" She walked back into the barn. Marcus followed along with the others. In the loft, Draconi medics surrounded the sleeping hatchlings, their equipment creating a soft glow. Sarah pulled up environmental readings on her scanner. "This is remarkable," she murmured. "The barn's temperature is perfect. The humidity is ideal. Even the air composition is nearly optimal for premature Draconi hatchlings." Governor Chen looked confused. "How is that possible?" "This is just an old barn," Marcus spoke quietly. "My grandfather built it for livestock originally. He used earth-based insulation, natural ventilation systems. The hay provides moisture control. The old stone foundation holds heat. It is all very low-tech, but it works." Sarah nodded excitedly. The hatchlings sensed it. When the sanctuary became inhospitable, their instincts drove them to find a suitable environment. They probably traveled at night, following environmental cues, and they found this barn. "Then we transport them to our medical facility," Saratha said. "Our technology will provide everything they need." "High Matriarch," Sarah said carefully. "Your medical facility is designed for healthy hatchlings. It might be too controlled, too optimized. These babies need something gentler. More natural." Sratha's spines raised slightly, a sign of irritation. "You suggest leaving them in a human's primitive structure, rather than using superior Draconi technology?" The tension in the barn grew thick. Marcus saw the warriors' hands move toward their weapons, but Sarah stood her ground. "I am suggesting that sometimes the simple solution is the right one. These hatchlings chose this barn for a reason. It provides what they need. Moving them might be more dangerous than leaving them here." "Unacceptable," Sratha said flatly. "I will not leave my children in human care." Marcus surprised himself by speaking. "Then stay, you and your medics. Monitor them here, but give the barn a chance." Everyone looked at him. "I do not pretend to understand Draconi biology," Marcus continued, "but I know this land. I know this barn. If Dr. Okonkwo thinks this place can help those babies, then maybe we should trust that." Sratha stared at him for a long moment. Marcus thought he saw something shift in her expression. "Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the smallest possibility of it. I will consult with my medical staff," she said finally. "But know this, human. If any harm comes to these hatchlings while in your structure, the consequences will be severe." "Understood," Marcus said quietly. As the Draconi medics conferred in their own language, Marcus looked at the sleeping babies. They seemed peaceful, their breathing steady and calm. They had come here seeking safety, seeking the right conditions to survive, and somehow, his grandfather's simple barn, built with old techniques and honest materials, had provided exactly what these advanced aliens needed. Marcus did not understand it fully, but he was determined to help however he could. The babies deserved that much. The Draconi medics argued for 2 hours. Their voices rose and fell in their musical language, while Marcus waited outside his own barn. Dr. Okonkwo stood with him, watching the activity with worried eyes. "They do not like this situation," she said quietly. "Draconi pride themselves on their advanced technology. Admitting that a simple human barn might work better than their medical facilities, it hurts their pride." "Pride does not matter if those babies die," Marcus replied. Sarah smiled slightly. "You are right, of course, but try telling that to a species who has been technologically superior for thousands of years." Finally, High Matriarch Esaratha emerged from the barn. She looked tired, and Marcus realized she probably had not slept properly since the hatchlings disappeared. "My medical staff has reviewed all options," she announced. "They believe that moving the hatchlings in their current state carries significant risk. We will attempt your human methods, but under strict supervision." Governor Chen, who had been waiting nervously, stepped forward. "Of course, High Matriarch. Whatever you need." Sratha's golden eyes fixed on Marcus. "You, human. Marcus Webb. You will work with Dr. Okonkwo to manage the barn's environment. My medics will monitor the hatchlings constantly. If their condition worsens even slightly, we end this experiment immediately." "I understand," Marcus said. "I do not think you do," Sratha replied sharply. "These are not livestock. They are the future of my people. Each one is precious beyond measure. Their loss would be—" She paused, and Marcus saw real pain cross her features. "Unthinkable." "I will do everything I can," Marcus promised. "But I need to understand what they need. Dr. Okonkwo can translate the medical requirements, but I need to know the goal. What should happen when they wake?" Saratha studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, come." She led Marcus back into the barn up to the loft. The baby dragon slept on, surrounded by medical equipment that blinked and hummed softly. One of the medics, a smaller draconi with bright blue scales, was taking readings. "This is Physician Kareth," Saratha said. "She will explain." Kareth spoke in accented but clear human language. "Premature hatchlings enter torpor to preserve energy and development. To wake them safely, we must gradually adjust their environment over several days. Temperature must rise 0.2 degrees every 12 hours. Humidity must increase in precise increments. Air circulation must be carefully controlled. Too fast, they wake too suddenly and their systems fail. Too slow, they remain dormant and eventually starve." "It is very delicate," Saratha added. "Our automated systems can manage such precision easily. But in this barn, we do not know if such control is possible." Marcus walked around the loft thinking. He touched the wooden walls, felt the air flow from the ventilation gaps his grandfather had designed. He looked at the hay, the stone foundation below, the old roof with its careful angles. "My grandfather was not a scientist," Marcus said slowly, "but he understood natural systems. This barn is designed to respond to the environment. It breathes, it adjusts. Maybe that is what we need here. Not perfect control, but careful adjustment." Dr. Okonkwo pulled out her scanner. "I can monitor the environmental conditions constantly. If Marcus can make small gradual changes using natural methods, we might be able to create the right progression." "Natural methods," Saratha repeated skeptically. "What does that mean?" Marcus pointed to the ventilation gaps. "I can open or close these to control airflow and temperature. The hay can be moved to adjust humidity levels. The stone foundation below stores heat from the day and releases it at night. If I add water to certain areas, evaporation will increase humidity. If I open the south doors at specific times, I can let in sunlight for warmth." Kareth looked at her instruments, then at the barn structure, then back at Marcus. "This is primitive." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But it works with nature instead of trying to override it. That might be exactly what premature hatchlings need." There was a long silence. "We will try it," Saratha decided, "but I will remain here. My warriors will secure the perimeter." If it fails, we try something else," Marcus interrupted gently. "But let us give it a real chance first." Over the next hour, they established a plan. Dr. Okonkwo would take environmental readings every 30 minutes. Marcus would make small adjustments to the barn's natural systems. Kareth would monitor the hatchlings' vital signs constantly, and High Matriarch Samratha would oversee everything. Marcus started immediately. He studied the current conditions and made his first small adjustments. He closed 2 ventilation gaps on the north wall to reduce cool airflow. He sprinkled water on specific areas of the hay to begin increasing humidity. He positioned old tarps to direct the afternoon sunlight more effectively. It was delicate work. Nothing dramatic. Just tiny changes building on each other. Dr. Okonkwo watched with fascination. "You are not measuring anything. How do you know the changes are correct?" Marcus shrugged. "I feel it. The air movement, the temperature, the moisture. My grandfather taught me to read these things. You learn to sense what a space needs." "Unscientific," Kareth muttered, but she was watching her instruments closely. "Maybe," Sarah replied, "but look at the readings. Temperature is rising at 0.19 degrees per 12 hours. Almost exactly what you specified." Kareth's spines raised in surprise. She checked her instruments again. "Coincidence," she said firmly. But as the day progressed, it became harder to call it coincidence. Marcus continued making small adjustments, and the barn's environment continued to shift in exactly the right direction. Temperature rose gradually. Humidity increased steadily. Airflow remained gentle but constant. By evening, even Saratha looked impressed. "How do you do this without instruments?" she asked Marcus. He was adjusting the position of some hay bales, creating channels for air to flow. "I just pay attention. Look at how the dust moves in the light. That tells you about air currents. Feel the walls. Stone holds heat differently than wood. Smell the air. Moisture has a scent, very faint. It is not magic. It is just noticing. We Draconi have instruments to notice for us," Saratha said quietly. "And they work well, I am sure," Marcus replied. "But instruments can only measure what they are designed to measure. Sometimes you need to sense things that are not in any manual." That night, Marcus stayed in the barn. He dozed in a chair, waking every hour to check conditions and make tiny adjustments. Dr. Okonkwo brought him food. Kareth continued her medical monitoring, her skepticism slowly fading as the hatchling's vital signs remained stable and even improved slightly. High Matriarch Saratha did not leave either. She sat near the sleeping hatchlings, sometimes humming softly in a way that made Marcus think of lullabies. On the second day, the process continued. Marcus opened the south doors at dawn to let in morning warmth. He adjusted the hay positioning to optimize moisture distribution. He worked with the barn like it was a living thing responding to its rhythms. The temperature curve is perfect, Dr. Okonkwo reported that afternoon. The humidity is tracking exactly as needed. Marcus, this is remarkable. More draconi arrived throughout the day. Scientists, officials, curious observers. They watched this human farmer manipulate his primitive barn with nothing but intuition and experience. Some were openly dismissive. Others looked thoughtful. By the third day, even Kareth had to admit something significant was happening. The hatchlings' metabolic rates are increasing, she reported. Their brain activity is rising. They are beginning to emerge from torpor naturally and safely. Esratha looked at Marcus with an expression he could not quite read. You are doing this. With no technology. No instruments, just old knowledge. My grandfather's knowledge, Marcus corrected. Passed down through generations. How to work with living systems instead of trying to control them completely. We have forgotten such things, Esratha said softly. In our advancement, we left behind the simple wisdoms. On the fourth day, one of the hatchlings stirred. Everyone in the barn froze. The small dragon, its scales a beautiful copper color, shifted in the hay. Its eyes opened slightly, unfocused but aware. Kareth's instruments chimed. Heart rate increasing. Respiration deepening. This one is waking. Is it safe? Saritha asked, tension in every line of her body. All indicators are positive, Kareth confirmed. The wake progression is natural and healthy. Over the next hour, the copper hatchling woke fully. It chirped softly, a sound like wind chimes. Saratha moved closer, making soft clicking sounds in her throat. The hatchling responded, lifting its small head. 2 more hatchlings began to stir. Marcus stepped back, giving them space. He felt tears on his cheeks and did not bother to hide them. It was working. Against all odds, against all logic, the simple methods were working. Dr. Okonkwo gripped his arm. You did it, Marcus. We did it, he corrected. All of us together. By evening, 7 hatchlings were awake. By midnight, all 15 were conscious, weak but alive, responding to their caretakers and beginning to eat the special food the medics provided. High Matriarch Esratha stood before Marcus as dawn broke on the 5th day. Around them, baby dragons chirped and played gently under careful supervision. You saved them, she said simply. When our technology failed, your simple wisdom succeeded. I do not understand it fully, but I will not forget it. Marcus looked at the hatchlings, so alive and curious now. Sometimes the old ways still have so. The hatchlings were awake, but they were not yet healthy. Kareth explained this to Marcus on the morning of the 6th day. They survived the torpor, which is good, the physician said, her blue scales catching the early light. But they are weak, underdeveloped. They need careful feeding, constant monitoring, and continued optimal conditions for at least 2 more weeks. Marcus nodded. The barn is yours for as long as you need it. What he did not say was that he had not slept more than a few hours in the past 5 days. His body ached. His eyes burned with fatigue. But when he looked at the baby dragons now moving around the hayloft on wobbly legs, he found the energy to continue. High Matriarch Sazratha had also remained in the barn almost constantly. She supervised the feeding, checked on each hatchling personally, and spoke to them in the musical Draconi language. Marcus sometimes caught her watching him work, her golden eyes thoughtful. On the afternoon of the 6th day, she approached him as he adjusted the ventilation. You are exhausted, she observed. I am fine, Marcus replied automatically. No, you are not. Saratha gestured to a hay bale. Sit, I wish to speak with you. Marcus sat gratefully. His legs were trembling from fatigue. Esratha settled nearby, her large form somehow graceful despite the small space. I have been thinking much about what has happened here, about how a human farmer succeeded where our best technology failed. It was not really failure, Marcus said. Your technology just was not designed for this specific situation. Generous of you to say. Saratha's tail swished slowly, But it reveals something important. We Draconi have spent thousands of years perfecting our civilization. We have sciences you humans have not yet imagined. We have technologies that seem like magic to younger species. She paused, looking at the hatchlings. One of them, the copper-colored one who had woken first, was playing with a piece of hay. But we have lost things too, Saratha continued. In our pursuit of perfection, we lost connection to the natural world. We no longer know how to read the wind or feel the temperature shift. We measure everything with instruments but understand nothing with our senses. Marcus thought about this. Is that so bad? Your instruments are very accurate, are they? Saratha turned her golden gaze on him. My instruments told me these hatchlings could not possibly be in a human barn. My scanners swept this entire region and found nothing. Yet they were here all along, were they not? The hay, Dr. Okonkwo said, walking up to join them. She had been monitoring the hatchlings with Kareth. I finally figured it out. The hay's organic composition created interference with the Draconi scanning frequencies. It was like natural camouflage. Saratha made a sound that might have been a laugh. So even your plants conspired to teach us humility. Over the next days, Marcus fell into a routine. He woke at dawn, checked the barn's conditions, made subtle adjustments. He worked alongside Kareth and the other Draconi medics, learning their language for different medical states, teaching them his language for environmental conditions. The hatchlings grew stronger daily. They began to recognize Marcus chirping when he entered the loft. The copper one in particular seemed fascinated by him. It would waddle over on unsteady legs and touch his hand with its small snout. That one has chosen you, Saratha said, watching this interaction with amusement. In our culture, when a hatchling bonds with someone outside their clutch, it is considered significant. I do not understand, Marcus said, gently stroking the copper scales. Hatchlings sense character, intention. This one trusts you completely. The Saratha's voice grew softer. As do I, Marcus Webb. You could have refused to help. You could have demanded payment. You could have used this situation for political advantage. Instead, you simply gave yourself to saving children who were not even your species. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the praise.
Anyone would have done the same.
No, Saratha said firmly. They would not. Many would have helped, yes, but few would have worked as you have, sleeping in a barn, ignoring your own needs, focusing only on their welfare. That night, Marcus finally allowed himself to sleep in his own bed. Dr. Okonkwo promised to watch the barn, and Kareth assured him the hatchlings were stable enough not to need his constant presence. He slept for 12 hours straight. When he woke, it was to the sound of his communicator buzzing urgently. He answered groggily. Marcus. It was Dr. Okonkwo, and her voice was strained. You need to come to the barn. Now. Marcus was up and running before his mind fully cleared. He drove his truck faster than safe, his heart pounding. Were the hatchlings sick? Had something gone wrong? He burst into the barn to find it full of Draconi, warriors, scientists, officials. And in the center, High Matriarch Saratha stood facing another Draconi, one Marcus had not seen before. This newcomer was larger than Saratha, his scales a deep crimson, his bearing aggressive. This is High Commander Zeketh, Dr. Okonkwo whispered to Marcus. He just arrived from the Draconi homeworld. Zeketh's voice was deep and harsh. He was speaking in the Draconi language, but his tone was clearly angry. Saratha responded calmly, but Marcus could see her spines were raised in defensive posture. Kareth moved close to Marcus and Sarah. The High Commander is demanding the hatchlings be transferred to the homeworld immediately. He says leaving them in human care is dangerous and foolish. But they are doing well here, Marcus protested. He does not care. He sees only that children of the high bloodline are in a primitive structure, under the supervision of a lesser species. Kareth's own spines were raised. He is traditionalist, conservative. He does not believe humans are capable of this task. The argument continued. Other Draconi officials took sides. The warriors looked tense. Marcus felt helpless watching his barn become a political battleground. Then the copper hatchling, the one who had bonded with Marcus, made a sound, not a chirp, something different. A cry, almost. All the Draconi fell silent. The hatchling waddled to the edge of the loft, looking down at the gathered adults. It cried again, a clear sound of distress. Then it looked directly at Marcus. Without thinking, Marcus climbed the ladder. The moment his head cleared the loft floor, the copper hatchling rushed to him, pressing against his chest, making soft, worried sounds. Marcus picked it up carefully. The little dragon was warm and surprisingly heavy. It settled in his arms, its small wings folding against his chest. "It is all right," Marcus murmured, stroking the copper scales. "You are safe." The hatchling relaxed, making a contented sound like a purr. When Marcus looked down, every draconi in the barn was staring at him. Zaketh's expression was unreadable. Azratha spoke in the draconi language, her voice carrying authority. She gestured to Marcus, to the hatchling in his arms, to the other 14 babies who were now also making worried sounds in the loft. Kareth translated quietly for the humans. "She is saying that the hatchlings have accepted Marcus, that they are healthy and thriving under his care, that removing them now would cause distress and possibly harm," Zaketh responded, his tone still harsh but less certain. "He says that proper draconi facilities would be superior," Kareth continued. Azratha's reply was longer. Her tail lashed as she spoke. "She is reminding him that proper draconi facilities failed to prevent this situation, that the sanctuary's malfunction caused the premature hatching, that this human's primitive barn succeeded where our technology did not." Kareth's voice held pride. "She is saying that wisdom is not measured by technology alone." The debate continued, but the tone had shifted. Marcus held the copper hatchling, and one by one the other babies climbed down from the loft to cluster around him. They seemed to sense that he represented safety, stability, the gentle care that had brought them back from the edge. Finally, Zaketh made a sharp gesture of concession. He turned and left the barn, his warriors following. The other officials dispersed more slowly, talking among themselves. Azratha approached Marcus, who was now sitting on the barn floor surrounded by 15 baby dragons in various states of climbing on him. "You have made quite an impression, Marcus Webb," she said. There was humor in her voice, but also something deeper, respect. "I did not do anything special," Marcus said, gently moving a hatchling that was trying to nest in his hair. "You did everything that mattered," Azratha corrected. "You showed patience when we showed arrogance. You offered wisdom when we offered only technology. You gave care when we gave only judgment." She knelt down, bringing her massive head level with his. "The High Commander has agreed that the hatchlings may remain here until they are fully healthy. But more than that, he has agreed to something unprecedented." "What?" Marcus asked. "We are going to learn from you, Marcus Webb, from humans. We are going to remember what we have forgotten." As the sun set on the farm that evening, Marcus sat in his barn surrounded by baby dragons, a draconi high matriarch beside him, and the beginning of understanding between two very different species. 2 weeks after the hatchlings woke, Marcus stood in his barn and realized he had become something he never expected to be. A teacher, draconi scientists arrived daily now, not with arrogance but with curiosity. They asked him questions about environmental management, natural ventilation, organic temperature control. They took notes in their advanced devices while he explained things his grandfather had taught him decades ago. "But how do you know when the humidity is correct without measuring?" asked a young dracony researcher named Tashara. Her scales were pale green, and she had been visiting for 3 days straight. Marcus held up his hand. "Feel the air. Really feel it. Heavy air means high moisture. Light air means dry. Your skin tells you things instruments cannot." Tashara closed her eyes and held up her own clawed hand. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "I sense something. Very subtle." "That is it," Marcus encouraged. "That is the start." Dr. Okonkwo watched these exchanges with barely concealed delight.
Do you realize what is happening here, Marcus?
"You are teaching an advanced alien civilization techniques they lost thousands of years ago." "I am just sharing what I know," Marcus said. "That is exactly what makes it special," Sarah replied. The hatchlings continued to thrive. They were bigger now, each about the size of a large sheep. Their wings were developing properly. They could fly short distances around the barn, though Kareth warned they needed another month before attempting real flight. The copper one, who Marcus had started calling Ember in his mind, never strayed far from him. When Marcus worked, Ember watched. When Marcus rested, Ember curled up nearby. The bond between them had deepened into something neither quite understood but both accepted. High Matriarch Azratha spent less time in the barn now, as her official duties required. But she visited every evening, checking on the hatchlings and often staying to talk with Marcus. "I have been investigating the sanctuary malfunction," she told him one evening. They sat outside the barn watching the sunset. Several hatchlings played in the grass nearby under Kareth's watchful eye. "And," Marcus asked, "it was sabotage. A faction of Draconi who oppose our integration with other species. They damaged the environmental systems deliberately, hoping the hatchlings would die and we would blame humans." Marcus felt cold. They would kill babies for politics? They would kill babies to prove that we should remain isolated, superior, separate from other species. Saratha's voice was heavy with disgust. But their plan failed. Instead, they proved the opposite. That working with humans, learning from humans, saved the very children they hoped would divide us. She looked at Marcus. "You have changed things, Marcus Webb. Not just for these 15 hatchlings, but for our entire species' future." A few days later, a massive ship arrived from the Draconi homeworld. It was not a military vessel, but a diplomatic one, covered in ceremonial markings. Governor Chen called Marcus immediately. "The Galactic Council is sending representatives. This has become bigger than just our colony. Get to the spaceport." "And Marcus? Wear something nice." Marcus had nothing nice except an old suit he wore to funerals. It would have to do. The spaceport was crowded with both humans and Draconi. News crews from a dozen worlds had arrived. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the attention, the cameras, the importance everyone seemed to be placing on him. He was just a farmer. The diplomatic ship landed, and representatives emerged. Not just Draconi, but other species too. Tall beings with crystalline skin, small furry creatures with 6 arms, a species that seemed to be made of living light. High Matriarch Saratha greeted them formally, then turned to Marcus. "Come, they wish to hear your story." The meeting was held in the Colonial Administration Building. Marcus sat at a long table, feeling completely out of place. Dr. Okonkwo sat beside him for support. Governor Chen looked both excited and terrified. A Draconi elder, even older looking than Saratha, spoke first. His voice was translated into multiple languages simultaneously by advanced technology. "I am High Counselor X-Tef. I have come from the home world to understand what happened here. To understand how human methods succeeded where our technology failed." Marcus swallowed nervously. "I did not do anything special. I just used the techniques my grandfather taught me." "Describe these techniques," X-Tef requested. So Marcus did. He explained about reading air currents, feeling temperature changes, understanding moisture levels. He talked about working with natural systems instead of controlling them. He described his grandfather's barn design, built with simple materials but deep understanding of how buildings interact with their environment. The representatives listened intently. Some took notes. Others simply watched Marcus with expressions he could not read. When he finished, there was silence. Then one of the crystalline beings spoke. "We face a similar problem in our civilization. We have advanced far in some ways but lost connection to fundamental wisdoms. Perhaps we are not alone in this." The furry 6-armed creature clicked agreement. "Technology is a tool, but wisdom must guide the tool. It seems humans have remembered this balance." X-Tef looked at Sratha. "You were right to bring this to the Council's attention. What do you propose?" Sratha stood. "I propose an exchange program. Humans will teach us what they know of natural systems, traditional techniques, and organic environmental management. In return, we will share our technology more freely. Both species will benefit. Both will grow stronger." "The hatchlings," X-Tef said. "They are well?" "Thriving," Sratha confirmed. "Would you like to see them?" An hour later, the entire diplomatic delegation stood in Marcus's barn, watching 15 young dragons play and fly around the hayloft. Ember immediately flew to Marcus, landing on his shoulder despite being far too big for it now. Marcus staggered but kept his balance. X-Tef watched this with what might have been amusement. "This hatchling has bonded with you." "Yes, sir," Marcus said. "In our tradition, when a hatchling of high bloodline bonds with another, that bond is honored and formalized." "Marcus Webb, would you accept the title of Clutch Guard? It would make you responsible for these hatchlings' welfare and education until they reach maturity." Marcus blinked. I am just a farmer." "You are the being who saved 15 lives when no one else could," Steph corrected. "You are the one who reminded an ancient species that wisdom comes in many forms. You are exactly who should bear this title." Marcus looked at Sratha, who nodded encouragingly. He looked at the hatchlings, especially Ember, who chirped hopefully. "I would be honored," Marcus said quietly. The ceremony was held the next day. Draconi from across the sector attended. Human colonists gathered in celebration. Marcus wore special robes provided by the Draconi, felt ceremonial marks painted on his face, and swore an oath in both human and Draconi languages. He became the first human ever to receive a Draconi title. But the ceremony was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Dr. Okonkwo established a new research center dedicated to integrative xenobiology, studying how different species' knowledge could complement each other. Human farmers began teaching Draconi scientists about traditional agriculture. Draconi engineers started helping human colonists with infrastructure, but now they listened to human input about design and placement. Marcus's barn became famous across multiple worlds. Scientists came to study it. Students came to learn from it. But Marcus insisted it remain a working barn, a real place, not a museum. The hatchlings grew rapidly. Within 3 months, they were large enough to fly properly. Within 6 months, they were the size of horses. But they never forgot the human who had saved them. Ember, in particular, remained bonded to Marcus. The copper dragon would fly to the farm every morning, help with work in ways only a dragon could, and spend evenings curled up near the barn. A year after the discovery, High Matriarch Saratha visited Marcus one final time before returning to the homeworld. "You have changed our civilization," she told him. "The exchange program is thriving. Dozens of species are now sharing traditional knowledge alongside technology. We are all becoming wiser together." "I am glad," Marcus said. They stood in his wheat field, now repaired and thriving. Ember and the other dragons were playing in the distance. "There is something I must tell you," Saratha continued. "The investigation into the sabotage revealed something unexpected. The faction responsible has been arrested, but their trial revealed a truth many of us had forgotten." "What truth?" Marcus asked. "That every advanced civilization faces a choice: to become so focused on progress that they forget their foundations, or to remember that wisdom is built on layers. The old supports the new. The simple enables the complex. You humans have not yet faced this choice because you are still young enough to remember both." She placed a clawed hand gently on Marcus's shoulder. "Teach your children what your grandfather taught you. Do not let them forget. Because one day, centuries from now, some other species might need humans to remind them of what they have lost." "I will," Marcus promised. Esratha bowed deeply, the highest honor a Draconi could give. Then she boarded her ship and departed. Marcus stood in his field and watched her go. Around him, wheat swayed in the breeze. His barn stood solid and red against the horizon. Dragons flew overhead, healthy and strong. He was still just a farmer. But somehow that simple truth had changed the galaxy.